Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Sock. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's first half of the South Africa tour. All the other Pro 12 action in this half, and next half look forward to our game against the Cheetahs and all the other Pro 12. So boys, quite an interesting week both on and off the pitch for Leinster. Obviously before or after we filmed last week's show, Isa and Visa Gate,
followed by Laptop Gate.
So there was quite a bit of that, and then obviously there was the very poor attendance. There was 3,000. It looked more like 300.
Big stadium.
Huge. I was in it.
It's
Absolutely
50,000
massive
seater,
stadium.
so
Not as big as Murrayfield, however.
3,000 would rattle around in it anyway.
65,000 in Murrayfield.
It was the whole tour has been a bit of a fucking shambles in a way. Apart from the rugby, it's been a shambles. Because I mean, whatever about whatever. The problem is that all of Europe is looking at us, and all the rugby world is looking at
But
us.
it's a sad thing that.
And I'm doing a silly thing like this.
Well, regardless of the visa, right? I mean, I think there's going to be teething problems, and you're going to get situations where, I mean, apparently the Pro 14 did write to all the clubs, so it was kind of Leinster's fault. They either chose to or chose not to read it, or didn't read the email or forgot about it. But they still made a monumental boo-boo. But look, our squad is quite deep.
Yeah.
So Leinster are in a situation where they can kind of paper over that crack. The thing about Healy, some airlines are a bit more strict and lenient, maybe because an airline sponsors Leinster, that they allow them away with a bit more lenient.
I also, and I may be completely wrong on this, but maybe some airlines are running airplanes that are slightly older and don't have the newer technology that allows you to use electronic equipment. I don't know. But anyway, look, my problem is anything that happens. These things happen. I mean, the errors make. The only problem is it reflects very badly on the club, and it makes us look like some kind of hicks up from the sticks, rather than the professional organisation that we know Leinster can be.
Yeah, lads. One thing that I thought was a bit that I just when you look around the stadium and you saw such a sparse crowd, regardless of whether it was 300 or 3,000, was if the league if the league is going to start bringing in two South African teams, would it not have been in the interest of the league to wait and have this high marquee fixture a couple of weeks' time when the Leinster's contingent of Lions were available? Because I tell you, when I went down to the Lions tour 8 years ago, the only player, and I mean the only player that was in the British and Irish Lions that any South Africans knew or heard of was Brian O'Driscoll. So what chance does nothing against these lads, but what chance does Noel Reid or even Carberry or any of these guys have of putting bums on seats in South Africa?
Yeah, well, you could say that, but if they'd only ever heard of Brian O'Driscoll, they're probably unlikely to have heard of pretty much anyone.
But the point is, though, John, that at least if you went in and you said, well, Sean O'Brien's playing. He played he's played 5 test matches for the Lions, who, by the way, drew a series with the All Blacks, who you guys were beaten by 59 points today. Or Johnny Sexton, or any other lads, the high profile Leinster players. Instead of going in, I mean, the team was fairly callow.
However, the team that you're calling very callow went in and won 31-10. Imagine what the top team would do to them.
But that's like marketing the league and the results on the pitch are two entirely different things. Like,
for sure.
Like,
but
if we want to, and the league isn't been like the Southern Kings. The league is being ridiculed because of 3,000 or 300 turning up at it, that no one's interested, as a joke, a farce. Not that one team is leading the other team by 4 points at half time and stretch the lead. I mean, many times Leinster have been beaten by 21 points. It's not a big deal.
I think you've got a couple of things right there. I mean, obviously we're more attentive to it because it's Leinster, but somebody had to be the first team down there. Somebody had to be down there around this time of year, with the level of unpreparedness that was inherent in the way that the league came together.
First.
I think maybe the hope was to send us first, that we were the biggest draw, maybe, I don't know, ourselves or maybe Munster, and that we might paper over some of the cracks. The other side of it is, as somebody said last week, I mean, when New Zealand beat Ireland 60-0, how much desire did you have to go and watch another rugby match that afternoon? That would have been a negative factor. I mean, apparently there was a club match in the Eastern Cape the next day and 10,000 people went. Yeah. So there's a market there. It's just the Kings are in because of the way it happened, because the news that they weren't going to be playing Super Rugby next year came before the news that they were going to be playing Pro 14 Rugby next year. All their players were released from their contracts. And the Eastern Cape or the Southern Kings have traditionally drawn players from Eastern Cape, from the Borders, from the Griquas, from the Valka, all those kind of, if you like, not so much the lesser, but the less well-known South African provinces, who are all in the middle of Currie Cup campaigns at the moment. When that finishes in October, then the Kings will be able to fill their boots with players. But at the moment, it's just an unfortunate confluence of events in terms of what can be done. I mean,
And this time next year, there'll probably be a better plan for what happens to the two teams in the Pro 12 or the Pro 14.
provided they don't do something stupid like expand again, by the way, which seems to be...
Dawson was there was an interview,
Yeah.
good interview in the Irish Independence today with Dawson, and he kind of poo-pooed. He wasn't critical of the expansion. He agreed that it needs to be done, but it needs to be done in a more structured and
Managed.
managed, systematic way rather than... Now, I think he appreciated that they had to move very
Oh,
quickly
yeah,
to
yeah,
get these
that's-
two in, and that's fine. But they need to consolidate these instead of moving it up to
Mhm.
super, or like
We've-
super
Yeah.
18 as it was at one stage. I don't think he wants to leave it go. He also had a bit of news about the new stadium development. Obviously, they're waiting on money from the government in the budget, and if they get that funding, I think they're looking for 25 mil. That everything's ready to go.
Yeah, well, they have the naming sponsor, which
Yeah.
hasn't been named, but we all know who it is.
Yeah.
In fairness, I mean, they've been looking after us always. But you know, getting back to the rugby, I mean, Leinster went out there. It was a bit like an Italian match in that there was no way Leinster could win that game. If they won, well, sure, they were expected to win. If they didn't win well, then it would
rubbish.
tantamount to losing. And if they lost, God between them and all harm. But they went out there and they got a bonus point, which, you know, to a certain extent, with a team that was relatively young, relatively callow in certain places, you know, it wasn't a bad result. I mean, for the first time a Leinster team has ever played in South Africa.
Yeah,
You know-
we'll take that.
Yeah.
We've got 15 points out of 3 games for the first time in history. I would
The one thing
Assert.
I would draw a little bit of caution about before this weekend, we were all very pleased with how we'd beaten Dragons, beaten Cardiff, and then Edinburgh went out and lost to Treviso after beating Dragons, beating Cardiff.
Yeah.
So we still don't really know where we are just
Well,
yet.
Dragons went out and beat Connacht.
Yeah. And there's another thing, actually. I remember maybe 10 years ago, maybe it was during the World Cup in 2007, Connacht opened their season at home to the sports ground with 300 people, or thereabouts, 300 or 400 people in the ground. And now we call them former Pro 12 champions, Connacht. So, you know, if something's well run the way Connacht have been over that period of time, then so what if there was 300 people in the ground? They can build from there.
Hey, look, we've been to Leinster when there's been 1,400
Yeah,
in Donnybrook, and we've been to Glasgow when there's been 400 or 500 at their matches. Now they're selling out. Okay, admittedly a small enough stadium, but still sell out
Yeah.
Scottstown very regularly.
There's a lot more interest in rugby in the Eastern Cape than being in parts of Ireland or Connacht or even in the parts of Leinster. So
Exactly.
Or Glasgow.
or Glasgow.
Well, so we got 5 tries at the weekend. Why don't we have a quick rattle through them? Noel Reid was the first one to open his account.
Good to see him back fit and firing.
It was, wasn't it?
I thought he played pretty well, actually. For somebody just dropped in.
Yeah.
Speaking of just dropped in, somebody just dropped
Dropped
the
down.
ball off a line out. But all is well. Now, defensively, the Kings, if you got 3 or 4 phases against them, you'd nearly score. Like, look at that. That is such poor defending.
Pretty poor
and-
attacking as well.
Exactly. And how did Noel Reid, Noel Reid is not exactly Cian Healy. How did he get across here?
Noel the Wall Reid.
Like, look at that. There's 3 guys underneath him. Surely one of them could have stopped him scoring if they had a bit of...
I think that the South African rugby player in general is finding it hard to realise just how physically powerful European rugby players are now. That we've taken the lesson out of their book. South Africa's kind of gone the other way. Their teams are a bit smaller than they used to be. Remember, South African teams used to always be massively physical teams, and now they aren't.
still
that
are
big.
at the top level.
Yeah.
You used to sort of mention that genetics for the South African Afrikaner
Yeah,
was, you know, quite different than, say, an Irish lad.
yeah.
The Celtic genes, as whoever used to call it, Matt Williams, I think.
Yeah,
Got down well there.
Later to mature. But like there was two guys could have stopped that ball going out and they didn't. So it's very hard to say how good you are after playing the Southern Kings.
Yeah, that's
They're just not up to speed defensively. They're not used to needing the kind of defense you need in the Northern Hemisphere. It's
but the gap is starting to appear within the two conferences of the haves and the have-nots, and
Yeah.
it really we won't see where we stand until we start playing the teams in the upper part
You see,
of those two.
I think we won't see where anyone stands until after Christmas next season. Because I think we're on a staggered start, and you know it always takes because of the way the South African teams have come into it. I would have expected the Cheetahs to be a lot more competitive, a lot quicker than they were, because I mean the Free State is the traditional rugby area, so it's going to take a while for it to all swing out. Anyway, here's Rory O'Loughlin's try.
good to see him getting the score sheet.
He showed great footwork actually, lovely little bit of footwork. He played very well actually. He was significant in a later try as well. But I mean, if you think about it, that was really simple. He just stood the guy up and went round him. I mean, there was no. It didn't require any world classness to do that. You know, it was very very basic stuff.
Well, we'll see it again now. There was a little bit of comedy defending in
Yeah,
there,
there was.
but he still had to do the deed,
Oh yeah,
which he did with a
still
plum.
needed scoring.
But from necessity, I suppose they're starting to play him in the centre now, which we've pretty much
Which is
only,
his
only
natural
seen
position.
Him, it is, yeah, but we've really only seen him on the
Like
wing.
there's four guys that failed to stop.
Well, the first guy here, that's
We beat him
Yeah.
fair and square, but three other guys appear in there, and none of them can get near him. You know, so
I think the winger knows it's his fault. The way he's kind of clutching the ground.
it'll take them a while to get up to that kind of defensive.
And the by now daily Jack Conan try was soon to come.
He's really gonna put it up to Mr. Heaslip when Mr. Heaslip puts his head above the parapet again. I reckon he's got plenty of nous, Mr. Heaslip, to keep ahead of the posse, but he's gonna be pushed.
The one thing to notice is the power that we have in our guys now.
Yeah,
You look at guys like obviously
Explosiveness.
like Conan, but
Conan's really powerful.
Jordy Murphy, Reese Ruddock, Andrew Porter, Young Byrne,
Dan Levy. Dan Levy's powerful.
Dan Levy. Although he's out for a while now, he's out for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlucky with injury, but
Yeah,
very powerful guy. And he's packed on an extra half a stone this off season as well. Yeah, it's great to see someone like Conan who can run around you over
He's
you.
great feet
He's
though.
got-
He's really great feet.
He's got it all. Like he's got the power to go through you. He's got the feet to go around you. You know, he's got the hands as well. He's a complete player. You know.
All three of those tries so far have been from 5 metres out. They should
Yeah.
be defended, really, shouldn't they?
The only thing he hasn't got is years of international experience.
Hey Jason,
If
guess
he
where
keeps
this one's
playing
from?
the way he's going,
Guess where this one's from?
Yeah.
that was a kind of a little set move, I think, there to get Sean Cronin to run around. I think he probably wanted to hit that a bit faster and harder
And straighter.
and straighter.
You look at the power that's going into the clear outs even.
But you see that up against the European defence, and they'd be stopped on the gain line.
No,
every
I think
time.
Rory O'Loughlin takes great credit here because he fixes two players and kind of stops a third as well. If you notice it when it comes from the other side, you see it. He takes two guys onto himself and slows down the third who's coming across, which gives a little bit of breathing room to Joey Carberry.
Who's temporarily limping after scoring it.
Everyone was limping in that match at some point. I think the ground was harder than they expected.
It was very simple, kind of, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a very simple
You
game.
know,
but-
Joey Carberry takes two guys into himself there and then
Nice hands,
feeds it
yeah.
out. Not Carberry, O'Loughlin.
Worth watching again. Got good feet, hasn't he?
Mm.
And Joey Carberry doesn't miss
Good-
from there.
Good power would have been an assist from Dave.
He got on the sheet as well.
This was almost like a classical Leinster try.
tell you what, their second rows were fairly brutalising at certain points of the game. Lovely little loop there. Carl Marsh and Dave in the corner.
It was very well done.
Was
Very old school answer that was.
remind?
But again,
Oh,
take,
Gaffney loop.
It did. He reminded me of Madigan there.
take these guys through a
Marsh.
few phases, and they run out of defenders. You know. What I was going to say was that their second row, some of the clean-outs, there was a few fairly vicious-looking clean-outs from both of their second rows. They're powerful guys. You know, if they could put it together a bit, they've got two enforcers there in their pack.
That one loop takes out 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
Just watching the highlights, it reminds me of watching some sort of a
Different
movie, you know, like that they had some pub team or a
Yeah.
prison team together, because they're pretty rubbish.
And
like.
they really were very, very
And
poor.
you can have as many gurriers as you want, like knocking heads off
That's
people and
true.
hitting late hits, when you've got no basic skills
Plan.
or plan, then you're going to get.
The other side is you have to catch them to hit them. And they're not even quite
fast.
managing that.
So, boys, who look sharp, do you think?
It's hard, again, you have to take it in context of the opposition. I thought Maloney had a great game. I thought he played really, really, really,
Yeah,
really well.
Maloney, Luke McGrath,
Yeah.
and Conan.
Conan had a good
For
game.
me.
Thought O'Loughlin played well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Ed Byrne did well.
Sorry, O'Loughlin. It wasn't Maloney. I was thinking it was
Yeah.
O'Loughlin.
I thought Maloney and O'Loughlin played very well. I thought Ed Byrne played well. Actually, I thought it was quite brave going out with the, if you like, the junior front row first.
Yeah.
Starting off with them and then bringing on the heavy hitters afterwards after they'd been worked over a little bit. Thought the guys did well, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, you know, even though they had 2 big lumps in the second row, I'm not sure they're props.
Yeah.
They're
Well, see,
playing
here,
the right sport.
It strikes me as bizarre, like, because, I mean, there were children walking down the street, and back in my day, when we were growing up, the children walking down the street in South Africa were better props than most international props in the Northern Hemisphere. You know?
Yeah. Where did it all go wrong?
Unless they're just all playing in different clubs around Europe.
Yeah.
Well,
Could
the brain drain or this, you know, from rugby drain from South Africa is so much bigger, even than
anywhere
New
else, yeah.
Zealand.
It is
It's
immense, yeah.
just
But you also have, like, just the current economic climate in South Africa,
the
that you
realm
have.
is-
Well, you have so many, not just even professional sportsmen leaving. You also got
Professionals of any kind.
of any kinds, and generally they're the white middle classes who make up the predominant numbers that play rugby union in South Africa, and therefore, you know, like, it's their sons that are in the schools and the universities that are playing. They've kind of gone, and they work in Dublin or London or wherever now.
yeah. Yeah, it's a
So they do have problems, like you know, that are kind of macroeconomic rather than
Well,
just.
it is. I mean, if you think of world rugby, of all the major nations, it's the only one that's a third world country. You know,
yeah, and
the rest of
also
us are all nice, well-fed first worlders. You know,
one of those problems is feeding the other one as well. Like the fact that people are leaving South Africa and the fact that financially it's not going very well in South Africa is making everybody else's money look a lot better, because, you know, if you can move up to the top 14 in France as a South African, the money you're making is
money you're making
outrageous.
in Pro D2 or even Federal 1 if you get the right club in France, compared to even in a Curry Cup player in South Africa is
But I mean, I remember 10 years ago
Incomparable.
when Ollie LaRue was here, you know, and I have no idea how much Leinster were paying him, but I
not
presume,
enough.
but I presume that the cash that he was on would be dwarfed by what's available nowadays, maybe even in Leinster. But at the time, as he was like absolutely rubbing his hands together.
was dwarfing what he was getting in South
Yeah.
Africa. He said so at the time. I mean,
Yeah,
he wasn't. Ollie was never shy about telling you the truth.
No.
Like even he talk about when he'd go to have a cup of coffee in Dublin, and he'd do that little conversion as every traveller does when they're in a foreign country. You convert it back into your own currency, and he was going, "This is a week's wages."
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Anyway, so there was other matches at the weekend. We kind of touched on it earlier. The Dragons beat Connacht.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming, really.
Not really, no.
So it was the first victory for Birch, which is good to see. I'm delighted because he was a nice lad when he was in Leinster.
He always was sound, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see that, but it's not very good to see West Team beating an Irish
No,
team.
that's true too. It could be a long season for Connacht, because I thought that was going to kind of give us a quick a bellwether of where Connacht were going to be this season, if they're above or below, you know, the Dragons. And it looks
Yeah.
like obviously they were beaten, and they seem to be beaten quite well. It was 21-8.
Again, remember they do have a different coach,
Yeah.
and they are
Yeah.
learning new
I think it
systems.
was the kick
Yeah,
in.
that.
Their conference was looking like the tougher conference when they were drawn initially.
Mhm.
But now Connacht are not looking great. Ospreys are not looking great. And no one else in that conference is looking even half great. So you've really got
Glasgow, Munster.
Glasgow and Munster at the top, and that's pretty much it. It's probably the Ospreys are going to sneak into third place.
And those two play each other at the weekend.
Yeah,
Should be a good one.
be interesting.
Yeah. And well, the other Scottish team, the Edinburgh, were beaten by Treviso at home, which
I
was
did say so.
it was the
That's-
first loss for Richard
Cockers.
Cockrell.
Well, I'd say he went mental.
I'd say
I
so.
wouldn't like to have been in that dressing room, even as an innocent bystander.
Treviso do that. They often target. I mean, for start, Benetton are putting money into the team again,
Yeah,
which isn't hurting. The other thing is that
Conor O'Shea's having a bit of input.
Yeah.
About,
Zebre have looked a lot more significant this year as well. The other side of it is that Treviso do plan their game. They do target certain games. And I'd say they targeted this one.
they gave Ulster a good go the previous
Yeah, yeah.
week as well.
Oh no, I
but
know, but
And they kind of, I can't remember exactly, but like the open match of the season, Munster got off to a flyer down in Cork, but I think they kind of
Came
pretty
back
much
into
held
it,
it.
yeah, it was 5-0 in the second half.
5-0, yeah.
So,
I think they won the second half, didn't they?
Maybe they did. Maybe
I
it
can't
was-
remember, but
yeah.
like it was still relatively close
Yeah.
for second half. So if you discount the first half of the first game as being a bit of a blip, you know they're actually on an upward
it'd
curve.
be great to finally see an Italian team
would, and
get
I-
off the arse of it.
I remember like going back 25, 30 years ago, Treviso used to have lots of big
Club showbiz.
Big
yeah,
money.
it was big money.
All the
and,
big,
you
big
know,
Australian and New Zealand players play for them.
You go to put your boots on one day and there'd be millions of lira in the pair of boots with your socks
that
in.
was Wanderers.
Yeah, but the thing is, millions of lira is probably about a fiver.
yeah, true.
I think
enough.
a million lira was 600 quid back in the day.
You wouldn't want to be in Turkish. So what's the? Oh yes, well Ulster they had a surprising result as well, beating the Scarlets 27-20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was actually a really good game. Did you see it?
I did see the game, and it was a surprise for several reasons. One, Rory Best, Ian Henderson, Kutsia, and Piatau were out.
Yeah.
Now, Ulster have not been a team. Without those guys, Ulster have not been much of a team in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And to see them put the champions away, I know it was a tight enough game, but they won
still did
it
it.
fair and square. There was no flukiness or dodgy yellow cards or anything. They did the business, and that was good to see. That was good for Ulster, and good, to see them do that with a team shorn of those players. They wouldn't have done that last year. So you got to look at Gibbs for sure as the new boy in, and maybe Peel to some extent as well. They seem to be ruffling a few feathers up there, which is a good thing. So yeah, hopefully Ulster build on that because they haven't been having great publicity with their recent
Yeah. Well, they're unbeaten now. They've
off the field issues.
won their opening 3 games.
Yeah,
The only question I would have is that
if they had played for Treviso for another half an hour,
when they have to
'cause
play a
they've
team
lost.
where because a lot of what they've done has been based around significant power. Power will only take you so far. Question I want to see is what do they have as well as that? So that's the next question for Ulster.
Well, they're playing Leinster and Ravenhill and next month. We'll see,
Yeah, we'll soon find out.
happens there.
Ospreys were beaten at home by Munster.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real surprise there. Ospreys aren't.
They have been on some serious slippery slope over the last
time.
6 months.
And they seem to be not playing. I don't know if Bigger injured, but I don't think he is.
But okay, I can
He's
appreciate.
coming on as a sub.
How was he?
I can
Yeah, so he can't be that injured.
I can imagine Bigger. I can understand Bigger's reason for going if he's getting a fairly hefty pay rise going off to play in
Yeah.
England. But it does kind of show maybe a lack of ambition by the Ospreys that they can't hold on to one of their
Or
starting
lack of money.
or lack of money. But
But
if you need the money, you can go out and get it instead of just you can try and get it. You
On
can-
one hand,
And, I mean, because he has to all intents and purposes, because there are, I think, at this point, all the Gatlin's Law contracts have been allocated. So he has He's retired from international rugby.
Well, Gatlin's Law has about as many
Oh,
wrinkles in it.
sure, there's more loopholes than a
You'll
a crocheted sweater. I
You'll
know.
find if he stands on one leg, whistles Dixie backwards in the right key, and does it on
There's a
film,
loophole to take
There's a
him,
loophole
yeah.
to take him into the Welsh team.
Bit
Well-
like the number of foreigners that can play for one particular club in Ireland.
Yeah.
Well, we won't go there.
You can have more overseas players when you're playing Gatlin's Law.
The funny thing is though that they're on one hand playing Sam Davies ahead of him is a sensible thing to do because you want to blood him and get him because he's going to be the main man the following season, you would think. So it makes sense to give him a bit of confidence of running the team and all that. But on the other hand, you've got Dan Bigger, you're paying him, so why not play him?
Mhm.
Now maybe they will, maybe they'll do a bit more rotation as the season goes on. But it seems that Dan Bigger is taking the back seat for the first part of the season anyway. Why ever? Maybe it's just a Lions
Maybe
rest
it's just
thing.
Lions,
I don't know, but
And
we'll see as the season goes on.
your beloved Cardiff went down against Glasgow.
I said they were good once for
I
5 minutes.
see Lee Keegan's cousin was in the crowd.
That's right.
Two pints.
That was
Waste of good
fairly-
beer.
Yeah,
He was thrown
you could
out.
tell he wasn't Irish.
Yeah, it was a waste of beer. That was the one comment everybody made.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Peter Clancy getting lashed out with a pint of beer.
George.
Or George, what did I say?
Peter.
Was I crossing him
You
with Peter
created
Fitzgibbon?
a horror creation.
Well, he
The Fitz Clancy.
he's from
Jekyll and
Munster.
Hyde.
He works for the revenue. I mean, where's the downside? Sorry,
So-
George.
So we've got Leinster top of the
Peter.
pile. We've got Leinster on 15 points, 3 wins from three bonus point victories.
Mhm.
Then you've got 3 other clubs, Leinster, Ulster, Munster, and Glasgow, who've also won their opening 3 games, but they've dropped, they haven't got a bonus point in all the matches. And then you have 3 teams that are winless, Zebre, the Kings, and Cardiff. So this gap is starting to appear again between the top and the bottom of the piles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
But
gonna
maybe it's just early
go
days
away
yet.
anytime soon.
But then I think because, like as you mentioned last week, Edinburgh had played Dragons and Cardiff, the same teams
We had,
coincidentally as we had, but it kind of maybe it just gave us a false
Sense
opinion
of
of them
security.
that they had turned a corner. But when they are beaten by Treviso at home,
Maybe we haven't turned that corner either.
maybe not yet. But
We're still lurking.
well, the thing is that we're starting to, I think we scored 14 tries in those games.
Well, that's the
or-
difference. We
or-
won all those games quite comfortably.
Well, it'll be interesting to see next week. Munster are away to Glasgow, so somebody's going to lose their unbeaten record or lose their winning record anyway, even if it's a draw. So that'll sort out that conference for a week or two. Our conference is not likely to be like we're still in South Africa for another week, and then we're playing Edinburgh. So we could conceivably go another week or two without being beaten.
Yeah.
We hope.
So we'll talk about our game against the Cheetahs in the second half. But for now, thanks very much, boys, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.